Kickstarter for $51,124, which is about half of an experienced software engineer's annual salary. The majority of it was developed by one dude with some occasional assistance from his friends, and it's built in a game engine most commonly used by high school students. So at least on paper, you kind of expect it to be bad, right? Well, that game was Undertale, which defied everybody's expectations and ended up being one of the most critically acclaimed indie games of all time, and to this day is among the less than 1% of titles to maintain the highly coveted rating of overwhelmingly positive. Steam has three primary ratings levels that a game can fall into: positive, mixed, and negative. If your game is listed as mixed, that means a range from 40 to 69% of your players would recommend your title, with the remaining percentage of reviewing players obviously not recommending it. Ratings from 70 to 79% bump your title up from mixed to a very respectable mostly positive, and from 39 down to 20% sees your title drop to mostly negative. Let's say I'm a solo game developer and I want to craft something out just to get a couple sales. Obviously, I'm going to review my own game positively, so with exactly one review at 100% the Steam scores are going to reflect overwhelmingly positive, right? But then some random person gave a single negative review, lowering it to 50% negative, which Steam considers to be mixed. Except neither of those are true because Steam doesn't start showing an aggregate reception until you have at minimum 10 reviews. Okay, so now let's say that I get 8 of my friends plus my own review to try and counteract that negative one. 90% recommendation should definitely put me in the overwhelmingly positive bracket, right? Well, still no. Once I've received 50 reviews with 90% recommendation, that opens me up to the very positive bracket. And it's only until I've hit 500 reviews that the overwhelmingly positive title can be claimed, with the inverse being true within the negative, very negative. 90% recommendation should definitely put me in the overwhelmingly positive bracket, right? Well, still no. Once I've received 50 reviews with 90% recommendation, that opens me up to the very positive bracket. And it's only until I've hit 500 reviews that the overwhelmingly positive title can be claimed, with the inverse being true within the negative, very negative, and overwhelmingly negative brackets. So, if I want my game to achieve the mantle of overwhelmingly negative, not only do 500 people need to have purchased the game, they need to be compelled to actually leave a review. And it's estimated that only about 3% of purchasers review the titles they pay for. While on paper, the question of how a game becomes overwhelmingly negative is pretty straightforward, in practice, the answer is a lot more complicated than I was expecting. And that's just it, really. Expectations. Going into this video, I was expecting it to be the low-hanging YouTuber fruit of poking fun at something bad, but it ended up being a much more fascinating rabbit hole to dive down. So let's get into it. This is the 10th lowest rated game on Steam. And with 236 reviews, only 16 of them were positive. But just because the vast majority of people hated their experience with this game doesn't mean it's not any good. To prove a point, I'll be reading a lightly abridged version of one such positive review, underlaid with my own experience playing the game. Well, I have played 4 hours of it upon writing this review. I'm not quite sure where the complaints are coming from, but here's my personal experience. Brace yourself, it is not exactly short. This will be more a review for people who want a bit more detail of the game instead of just a "it sucks" type of review. Camera. Press C and get into outside view. Use left mouse button and can move camera any angle you like. I could post the suggestion to maybe in the future put more camera control in all the views. Graphics. I have not seen an issue there either. When launching game, it gives you options to change settings and so far, I'm getting basically what I see in the trailer. If you experience lag, just lower your settings. It has its bumps and jolts here and there, but nothing to make it unplayable for me. Gameplay. Challenging at times, but I enjoy a challenge. The game will require you to take your time and go slow at times. You are not a race car driver, but if you do, you can complete your challenges. I have been able to complete them all first try so far. You can flip your vehicles over, so be careful. To me, this just gets you to be careful while playing and adds to the challenge. Yes, some things will bounce around, but I only seem to have that problem if I went at it like a bat out of heck. It just convinced me to take my time doing it, which honestly allowed me to enjoy the game more. I find it to be a decent simulation. I find it to be a decent simulation. You are doing just as it describes. If the game made it too easy on you and were able to rush whole thing, would not be any playable. What? If the game made it too easy on you and were able to rush whole thing, would not be any playable. Okay, no, that's right. This game, I think, is suitable for people into this genre of games. You must be willing to accept this genre before enjoying it. It will not be for everyone. Conclusion. Is the game perfect? No, I am not saying it is. It has its flaws, but what game doesn't? Was this somebody's passion project? Boy, I hope not. Moving down to the 9th lowest rated game on Steam is Jurassic Island: The Dinosaur Zoo, which anticlimactically I don't really have much to say about because it's just very much not good. Alright, so first things first, let's get ourselves a dinosaur. You don't get any instructions, so you kind of have to guess what anything does. I assume the egg button will do that for us. Oh, he's just... okay. Well, let's get him in a cage or something. And he walked right through it. Perfect. So I noticed that these developers forgot what punctuation is.
Build road element by clicking a map tip by clicking to remove road. Click to calculate.
I keep getting this pop-up that tells me I need a power plant, so I put one in there and now it's doing something. Why do I keep placing flowers when I try to move the camera? Right, clearly this is very bad. I don't need to try to prove that at this point. This feels like a game that would have come out on Android back in like 2012. So out of curiosity, I searched for Jurassic Island: The Dinosaur Zoo on the Google Play Store, and we've got Jurassic World Alive, Jurassic World TM The Game, and Jurassic Dinosaur Dino Game. Then we've got Jurassic Zoo, Dinosaur Zoo, and Jurassic Dinosaur Dino Game again. Scrolling down further, we see Jurassic World Alive again, Jurassic World TM The Game again, and Minecraft. Man, mobile game companies really are the worst, aren't they? Not you, Minecraft. I love you. Speaking of mobile games, this video has been brought to you by... No, I'm kidding. Anyway, it's important to remember that with only 82 reviews, Jurassic Island the Dinosaur Zoo does not qualify for the title of overwhelmingly negative, which Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation 2 does. You know Gundam? Yeah, this Gundam. It's a Japanese thing about people piloting giant robot suits. I'm pretty sure it's an anime. This is the extent of my knowledge of Gundam, but it's not like some tiny intellectual property nobody's ever heard of. It generates its parent company, Bandai Namco, a little less than $1 billion every single year. In case you aren't familiar, Bandai Namco isn't a tiny company either. They're the publishers behind Pac-Man, the Dragon Ball games, and Dark Souls. So that begs the question, is this the 8th worst game on Steam? No, it's not even close. There is no reality in which this is a better game than this. Honestly, I think a decent chunk of people could enjoy this one with some fixes, but I am not one of those people. In Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation 2, a name which flows right off the tongue, there's a punishing sense of intentionality behind all of the moves your mobile suit, that's this big robot, can pull off. You can usually only fire a ranged weapon a few times until you're forced to wait multiple seconds before you can use it again, and that even includes melee. I've never seen a game in which swinging a sword has to recharge, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. This game doesn't just punish mindless button mashing, it straight up isn't even an option. When everything you do has to recharge, it requires all of your actions mid-combat to be a conscious decision. It's not a gameplay style that I'm particularly fond of, but I know there are a lot of people who are, because, in a fit of cruel irony, most of the negative reviews on this game are surprisingly positive. It seems to be a pretty good Gundam game, whatever that actually means, so the complaints largely stem from bad server infrastructure and gacha-style monetization. Because yeah, this is a free-to-play game, with all of the annoying baggage that comes with it. With all that said, if I'm being completely honest, I just don't like it. You might like it, it's just not for me. There are so many baffling decisions that it feels like it's deliberately trying to be irritating. Let's talk controls. This was originally a console exclusive that made its way to PC, so I decided to play with my Xbox controller. In basically every first or third person shooter, the left trigger is your modifier, like to aim down your sights or switch to a different firing mode, and the right trigger is pretty universally to fire. Well, tapping left trigger here is to crouch, and if you hold it down, you go prone, which makes it apparently easier to fire that way, because, you know, your giant robot has to stabilize its arms. And that makes sense. Just don't accidentally hold it down or you'll have to wait for the whole animation to finish, just like everything else. But let's say you're playing with keyboard and mouse. Well, there's no mouse cursor. You can use left click to select options, but you navigate everything with WASD. That might feel broken, but that's just how it is. Once you start a new file and enter the game, one of the first things you'll notice is that the camera slowly pans like you're using a control stick, which is weird. I thought, surely I can go into the options menu to change this, but for the entire duration of the 30-minute intro, the options button in the pause menu is completely locked. You just can't change any of the settings until you've already followed the tutorials. When you're not in a match, the game takes place in a hub where you can talk to NPCs that allow you to interact with its various systems. And somehow, despite looking like an early PlayStation 3 game, this portion of it runs terribly. And it's not like I have a weak system. All the footage you've seen so far has been captured from an RTX 3070. Oh, hey, did you hear that? Yeah, that. I'm pretty sure it's a notification sound, but nothing ever pops up on screen to correlate with it, so I'm not sure what it's notifying me of. It just happens sometimes. Speaking of annoying noises, this NPC here is the first one you'll talk to upon starting the game.
You can press the option button to check the training guide at any time during training. Make good use of it.
If you think her voice is annoying, well, don't worry, because it follows you everywhere you go.
Ready for your next lesson?
And it won't.
Begin the mission.
Shut
Enemy mobile suit
up.
is down. Enemy mobile suit is down. Minor damage. No network access. Significantly less processing distance. Enemy mobile suit is down. You'll save.
And that's if you're able to get into a match. You'll be waiting for multiple minutes for players to slowly populate your lobby, and if one of them isn't able to navigate the confusing menu system fast enough to get ready for a match, everybody gets kicked out, and the whole thing starts over again. I feel sorry for any Gundam fans who were expecting more from this game, because it really should be better. This is how you get 15,000 negative reviews and become the 8th lowest rated game on Steam. You take a publishing company with a decent reputation, a franchise with decades of legacy, and you completely fumble the execution. This could have been good. Is it the 8th worst game on Steam? No, absolutely not. But this pattern of sadly unrealized potential preceded by high expectations is one that we'll only see more of as we continue down our list. And if I were to summarize the concept of sadly unrealized potential preceded by high expectations in one word, that would be, say it with me now, Kickstarter! The unfortunate paradox of seeking crowdfunding for a product that doesn't exist yet is that you have to sell your ideas.
Hey, what are you doing? Wondering what that was?
Which you may or may not have the ability to bring into fruition.
Simply place my hitch behind your waistline, then hitch up your bag. I've walked for miles like this, and now you can enjoy hands-free travel.
And in what seems to be a common occurrence, the team behind Kinetic Void had very high ambition, but their asking price was frankly too low for the concept they wanted to pull off with a 3-man team.
Kinetic Void is a single-player space adventure with procedural content and intense focus on emergent gameplay. What this means is that every time you start a new game, the galaxy will be different, and the choices you make as the player will shape the experience you have.
According to Glassdoor, the average salary for a game developer in the United States is around $80,000, and the team behind Kinetic Void wanted to develop their game for $60,000, which they just barely ended up meeting in the final hours of funding. And after business and income taxes divided by 3 people, that doesn't end up being sufficient to realistically sustain a person for long enough to quit their day jobs. So it was always going to end up being a passionately driven side project. When this game entered early access on Steam, the general reception was actually not too bad. Everybody operated under the assumption that they were playing a game that was actively in development, and that the issues they uncovered as they played through it would eventually be ironed out in the final builds. But after months with no communication from the development team, the game quietly left early access and was released as a finished product with none of the rough edges smoothed out, receiving its final update in January of 2015. And with less than 200 positive reviews out of a total of 1,300, Kinetic Void was firmly cemented into the ratings bracket of overwhelmingly negative, putting it at the 7th lowest rated game on all of Steam. But it's not just an unfinished game. It's a cautionary tale. One to the backers of Kickstarters on how to properly set their expectations when funding a project from an unproven team, and one to the teams who hold these projects on how to maintain the expectations of the backers that fund them. A negative review with over 160 hours of playtime put it into perspective. The devs are a small team. Apparently there are only 3 of them, yet they consistently have ignored offers of help from the community. Perhaps it's project burnout. Perhaps the devs will find a second wind and with a mighty effort put a playable game together. I wouldn't count on it. Put your money somewhere else. 2 sad thumbs down. I'm being informed by my producer that the last 4 minutes of video fell dramatically low of our requisite joke quota, so in an attempt to make up for the shortcoming, you can expect to hear 5 reverb fart sound effects spaced throughout the next section. Thank you for your patience as we work through this. O2 Jam Online is a game with a storied past, and at least shares a title with an older game that carried a lot of passionate fans. You can make a whole video about this topic alone, which has already been done very well, so go watch that if you're interested, but I'll try to condense it down. The original O2 Jam was a rhythm game that you could play with rooms of up to 8 people, either playing competitively with each other or each contributing a different instrumental track to the same song. The tracks were purchased on a song-by-song basis, but with certain tracks only available in certain regions or just being generally overpriced, this inevitably led to a bustling community of custom maps and song piracy, which eventually put the company out of business due to